discipleship is the way to go if you want to achieve, and it has to be like in the heart of the mission. I knew of one of the biggest indigenous African mission agency did a survey of their staffs, and they found out in the last 5 years that nobody had made any disciples, and they were advocating for other people to make disciples all around the world. So you don't want to end up like that. Then you start having inside conflict because people are not transforming and laying down their lives for others to be transforming.
To the Follow Forward podcast, where we highlight real stories, global voices, and Christ-centered servant leadership. I'm your host, Tim Tucker, and I'm thrilled today to be joined by Ali G, or Ali OG, or Ali Sampson, or G Feelings. You have so many names. Please explain these names to me right now, Ali.
All right.
And what should I call you for the rest of this podcast?
OG is okay. Thank you
OG.
so much. Once again, I feel so honored to be here. The name OG is just obey God. It contextualized concept because on the streets, OG means original gangster or so, but we contextualize it based on the work we're doing. And Ali is simply a name that means noble priest. If you Google it up, that's the original meaning. And Samson is my surname.
What's G Feelings?
G Feelings is the name I use mostly for my music. That means an expression of God. Feelings is expression, so God's expression.
Of the OG being the redeeming factor, a big thing for me is that, God brings good out of bad. And, we shouldn't be afraid to redeem the things that seem to be negative in the world and redeem them for the kingdom of God, like we have in South Africa with the Message Trust, Gangstar Cafe and Gangstar Enterprises. We're wanting to redeem language and restore it to what God's intent is. So that's brilliant. I'm looking forward to hearing more about how you do that on the ground there. I want us to go back through 2025, which has been where our relationship has fallen. I want us to start there. I got an email from you, Ali, and I think I probably took a few weeks to reply, and then eventually we got a meeting together. But there was a backstory to you approaching me to explore what it would look like for you to be part of the message. Maybe just briefly give some of that backstory that led to you reaching out to me.
Sure. So I was working with an agency, and they were trying to restructure the vision of the agency, and we're mobilizing disciple makers, and at this point they felt that the major thing they were called to do was mobilizing instead of making disciples, to mobilize the church to do that. So I asked questions, and so they asked staff, if disciple making is what you feel called to do, then you would either have to do it on another platform or start your own platform. So basically, after more than 6 months, we had to come to the conclusion that we will not want to live our lives making disciples differently than what the organization really wanted us to do. So this is what I'm called to do, especially among urban youths, those people who are hard to reach and have a lot of problems of poverty and crime. So um, we decided to just stay for a while and keep praying and listening to God. So I remember that when they brought the new manager who was restructuring the former organization, he was trying to understand what I do because I started that organization in Nigeria. So he sent me an email from the UK. It was a job offer for a youth pastor with the message in Manchester. So he sent me a message to say, why don't you check the job responsibility and the job offer if this is exactly what you do? And I was like, this is this is me, but it made me chuckle and laugh. And I sent it to the people around me. They're like, this is you the last 5 years. This is what you do. We continued the conversation till when we came off that platform. And as we kept praying with my wife, I remember that he sent me something like that. So we went over there. But this time we didn't feel called to go to UK. And I think by that time the job offer somebody had already taken it. But we knew that we started to work here and God would want us to consolidate it. So after taking time to pray some more, we just sent an email and say, let us reach out to wherever this
Mhm.
mail came out from. So we were able to do that, and we awaited for response. So amazingly, a response came, and then it tagged you. Uh, it came immediately, tagged you. You said you were going to be busy, so we should correspond with Lucy. So that's how we started corresponding with Lucy, and amazingly, you were able to get off your busy horse at some point, and started having. We had a video call, and you know, I understand because of your job and a lot of people that been talking or sending messages, you're like, okay, great. So this is your passion. Okay, let's see what God is gonna do. So,
Yeah.
uh,
And I remember
so
that
we were
conversation.
sure.
Yeah,
Yes,
because
sir.
you
Continue.
something about that conversation where I heard your heart, and not just obviously you, OG, and your wife, Ruth, chatting together. In fact, Lucy, my PA, she'd had a call with you previously, and she had tried not to hype it up too much, but she was like, "These are message kind of people." And I think this is important context as we delve into this more into our conversation backstory because I think the journey you've been on, what I like about what you just shared is that process of discernment, of understanding the call of God. But then in your case, there was some patience that needed to be applied, as well as we've worked through the relationship, what you're doing there in Nigeria. And what we've seen is this kind of coming together of vision and passion and calling that you've got on the ground together with a ministry and organization that can support and encourage that. And we're continuing on that journey, aren't we? But you came to Cape Town with Ruth. And I think there are a couple of things about that trip that I wanted to highlight. The first was just remind me, OG, how many days it took you to get here to Cape Town?
Not less than 5 days.
5 days. And if we look on that map,
Not
it's
less
not
than
that far
five
from
days.
Nigeria to Cape Town, but that
And
was an adventure and a half, wasn't it? From when you left home in Jos, going to Abuja, going to Lagos, missing a flight,
uh,
eventually finding your way to Cape Town. But we had done a special few days together, and part of this podcast, Follow Forward, is that we're mates on mission. This is about friends coming together, and God built that friendship. But one of the things he helped to build our friendship was that you and Ruth experienced a Cape Town Gatsby, didn't you? Just describe the experience of eating a Gatsby at Gangstar Cafe in Cape Town.
when we stepped into Cape Town, and that was the first time. I've gone to other African countries, but that was the first time in South Africa. Totally, it was like first. This is because I'm coming from a cold place, very cold in Nigeria, but this is another level of cold. And when we stepped into the office of the message, the first thing we noticed is that everything is intentional. The branding, the colors, everything is intentional and consistent. And it's kind of an office family, you know, and the excellence of the coffee, cakes, the everything was just intentional. And the first business meeting, that gave us a perspective of excellence. And then, talking with each staff and about their responsibility. I'm like, these guys are working like they're not working. Like they love what they're doing, they're consumed by it, but there's also structure, there's also feedback. This is a serious ministry. Like this is what we want to be part of all our lives. This is what we can give our lives for because already this is a passion. We're not just trying to join to get employed because we don't have what to do. But this is a family, professional, all mixed together, kind of stuff. So you get a chance to grow, learn how to work with structure, and also have a family who are occupying different roles. And I won't forget the tips by the waterside, the chips and fish.
Yes. Well, I jumped in with the Gatsby, which we had here, but we also had fish and chips in Hout Bay, all the
Man,
great things to do in Cape Town. And so we've started at the end of the story, or at least where we're currently at in the story, which is you, OG, your wife, Ruth, embracing mission and becoming part of the message as our representatives in Nigeria, currently on a voluntary basis as we build capacity there in the years ahead. Let's go back to the beginning. OG and his wife Ruth on mission for Jesus in one of the toughest places on the continent or even on the planet at the moment. We'll get into that towards the end of our conversation. But take us back to how you accepted Jesus. What was the start of your adventure with him? What did that look like for you?
grew up in a family where my parents were Christians. My dad was a missionary, and and you know what is expected of Christian kids. There's a lot of pressure on you to conform. My dad also wasn't around that much because he was a missionary, and he also was volunteering, so we didn't have resources. My mom worked with the government, and the money was just never enough. So we jumped from school to school, and I didn't have the best of models, and where we lived was in the ghetto, so I had to get my own kind of models and feel that is not real, man. I don't want nothing to do, even if he exists at some point, I didn't want nothing to do with him. Going into that life of the streets and watching my friends die because of bad decisions and all that. Um, Thank God for godly friends. I had some godly friends that started praying for me. So at some point I got saved. I actually got saved early in life. The first time I encountered God was in the morning devotion. So I need to state that. I was very, very young, but after that encounter, no real discipleship. So I went into the world until I was at the end of my university days that God grabbed my heart. But of course, I had a lot of addiction. So it was a journey. So God has just been leading me and through different people who love the Lord and knew how to pray. One beautiful thing I always like to mention is that I know that there are a lot of people out there who misrepresent Christ, and that is why it has brought a lot of people hurt and pain and suffering and confusion. But then the God of the Bible always represents himself perfectly. I jumped into the Bible and I started learning to know him, for what he says and how he acts. And that is how I started growing into a man. Thank God my dad had a pack of old books. I started going in to read Ian Bounds, Tozer. One of the books that really blessed me was Oswald Smith, the man God uses. I started reading books, read Watch My Knee, Austin T. Sparks, one of my greatest authors that exposed me to God's eternal plan and what the body of Christ should be, understanding God's mind. I started studying the Bible. I said, if God is real, then I need to know him. I just felt I had time in my hands. I wasn't doing anything. So I decided I'm going to pray for 7 hours and read for 4 hours every day. And I was reading the Bible from cover to cover. And some things started happening to me that I couldn't understand. God started introducing himself to me by himself. I was able to know things that couldn't be known easily. And I started seeing things taken out of my life and things brought back. I remember when I had an encounter with the Lord Jesus Christ. I was lying on my face and I saw the heavens open. I saw Jesus and two angels, and he didn't say anything. I felt my body melting. That's when I understood the fullness of God's love. It's love, is joy, but it's fire. It's not just the kind of love, it's an active love. So with all these opportunities and privileges and answers to prayers, I saw God transforming me.
Hearing your story, a couple of things strike me. One is a lot of us who were raised in Christian homes had that early encounter. It almost was so natural for us to believe in Jesus and to trust in Him. That a time comes, and often that either comes through a time of challenge, time of you know what may be called backsliding, a time of adversity, when our faith is truly tested. And I always talk about almost having to make an adult commitment, or it's not that the child commitment was invalid, but that actually there needs to be a time where you've counted the cost and we know what it is to follow Jesus. You said that the lack of discipleship was there in youngsters, and clearly that's a challenge. Do we take it for granted that kids raised in Christian homes are being discipled? And often we know it's not easy for parents to do that role. We need other people in the lives of young people. That's critical. But then that you went through this process of transformation, having come to Christ as an adult, and that kind of process that you needed to go through too. Is it fair to say, when you're looking at your mission now and your ministry now, that because of those experiences that were so formative for you, has shaped your approach to mission? And maybe just share a little bit about your passion for discipleship and how that really shapes your heart for mission and for young people.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you very much once again for taking us back so that we can learn. When I became very serious, I started working with a mission agency. And one of the greatest things I noticed is uh, the mission organization was all about mobilizing believers into missions. So I was the youth national leader, and we did that. We organized programs. We had 400 young people. We'll do camps with them and tell them about missions, get them fired up. And what we notice is that when they go back to their churches, it's like it just starts and go off. It looks like it's going to be a big deal. It goes off. Why? Because they're not really disciples. So I started employing this material called STEP. So STEP is a tree process material that starts from discipleship, then stewardship, then global missions. Because if you're not a disciple, mission doesn't make sense to you. Why would I stress myself? Why would I stab myself and give? Why would I pray for the world? I need to pray for myself. I need to be okay. And if you don't understand that you're a steward, then the resources in your hands will be misused for your own pleasure, not for his own pleasure. Now, if that too is established, then global missions now come into play. So young people need to be first discipled because only disciples will follow the mission of the master, which is to make more disciples either locally or globally. So we started on that journey and we saw that when we started making disciples, it was sustainable. They understood what global missions was. They wanted to go with God wherever he wanted to go. And because they were growing and listening to him, he will share with them what is in their hearts. So that kind of developed the passion in me. And then we started reaching out, especially to the guys in the jungle there. You could preach to a guy, he would cry, weep, be sorry, but next week he's in jail or he's killed by another gang. Some of them don't understand even anything about being Christians. And the goal was not just to disciple them, but also to raise them as disciple makers, among their peers so that there will be generations of godliness. Like when God got Abraham, through him, he got Isaac. And by the time it was Jacob, Israel became a nation. So we believe in the third, fourth generations, nations start emerging that will glorify God. And then when we started, it was like a joke, you know, till we grew more than 60 groups. Just obeying this, like when we get somebody who would work with them and help them to be able to grow and then start facilitating, gathering their social networks, relating with them, and they became a house of prayer. They would pray for their community, speak the kingdom, go on prayer walks, and then that started growing, 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 and we started seeing a whole lot of things. And then it now went beyond even the jungles and the ghettos, but people saw transformation in the lives of these guys, and they also wanted to use where they are and what they had to make disciples. So I knew that discipleship is just the way to go if you want to achieve it. It has to be like in the heart of the mission or else. Because I knew of one of the biggest indigenous African mission agency did a survey of their staffs, and they found out in the last 5 years that nobody had made any disciples, and they were advocating for other people to make disciples all around the world. So you don't want to end up like that. Then you start having inside conflicts and all that because people are not transforming and laying down their lives for others to be uh, transforming.
Ali, that's amazing. And I love everything you're saying in terms of your heart and how that comes through and the emphasis and also how that leads to multiplication. It's one of the counterintuitive things of
Yes,
discipleship
sir.
is that it leads to multiplication. It takes longer initially, to go deep with people. And particularly when you're working in urban contexts or the kind of context you're working in, it takes a long time then to kind of initially make those steps with people. But once transformation begins, it then grows from there, doesn't it? As people get a hold, the connection between discipleship and mission is what you're talking about. So as we kind of bring our conversation to a close, we do want to hear about some of your current priorities. What is God doing right now? We can't ignore that in Nigeria, we're going through some significant challenges. It's getting the world's attention, but these are not necessarily new challenges, but it's getting the world's attention now. The persecution and the violence, particularly being committed against Christians. We've had conversations about this, and it's something we want to address as the message, particularly to care for those who are caught up or victims or lost family members and others. There's a whole generation of people who are being hurt, not just in terms of losing their lives, but all the trauma associated with this. What do you feel God is saying into this for you, for mission, and how are you responding to what you sense God is calling you to in the Nigerian context?
This is something that I've lived through all my life as a Christian that is coming from the north. I was born and brought up from Borno State, Maiduguri. That is the extreme, the last state before Chad and Cameroon. I basically have lived most of my life in the north. The killings of Christians and the oppression is not just a killing. When you're living in those states, you're like a second, third class citizen. You'll be denied of your promotion, salaries, of you working justly. You'll be denied of opportunities. For no reason, I graduated and they refused to give me the certificate for the next 3 years. For me to be mobilized to go out and serve the country. You could be oppressed legally, and so where Islam has out of control, what happens is that you're like enslaved. So you will not be necessarily killed, but you'll be enslaved. Whenever they want to, a sect can come up, and if they want to land or something, they can cause bloodshed, they can burn churches. I remember when I was doing computer school, I was going to write exams and they started burning cars and killing people, and I had to go back. That was the end of that computer school. The trauma, I never went back there. And so now living in Jos, Plateau State, where these things are happening, it's almost every day in these villages and the town, there are people being killed. So it's a time for the global church to partner with Nigeria. And I've seen that increasingly, like God is laying the heart of the global church to come and intervene. It's a systematic thing, and the government is in support of it. So I think advocacy on social justice, there are things that we will need to do. Like you need to do it to survive. Also, because we make disciples, it affects some of our people because most of our people come from all these places. So you would have to go for burials. You have to listen to stories. You have to go through healing trauma trainings with some of these people. That like there are people that you encounter with them, whatever means anything to a human being, they have lost it. Lost their houses, lost their parents, their people, all the people they grew up with, they've lost it. They don't have land. They can't go back there, because of fear. They could be attacked again. So um, that is something that we respond by praying, by giving also. I think those are the best ways. And also using that opportunity, you know, to provide healing from trauma and then discipling those people so that, because a lot of them cannot relocate, they live in IDP camps.
It's
Yes,
such an
sir.
important conversation to be had, isn't it? I think it's so important that
Yes, sir.
awareness, educating ourselves, understanding what's going on the ground, and but also listening to trusted voices. It's important that we actually have more dedicated conversations around this. And certainly, it's something I'd love to hear more about. How from you, how can we not only educate ourselves but support and pray intentionally for what's happening on the ground, trusting obviously that God can intervene, even though these are systemic challenges that you talk about. We also can trust as a movement of disciple making happens, that can begin to bring about some transformation. You've inspired us in terms of disciple making. You've inspired us in terms of having that multiplicationary impact, and you've inspired us to invest in others and to become aware of what's happening, and really strength to you, OG, is what everything you're doing in Jos, in Nigeria, as we take hands together for kingdom purposes. We really want to support and cheer you on and find ways of practically helping. So if anyone listening to this podcast wants to find out more, then they can contact us to find out more. But thanks for being part of the Follow Forward podcast today. We're sure to have you back again and learn more. But also we say to everyone, watch this space for what's going to happen in partnership with the message in Nigeria, trusting God that we can really minister effectively to so many people on the ground there. This has been the Follow Forward podcast. It's real stories, global voices, Christ-centered leadership. Thanks, OG, for being with us, and we look forward to seeing everyone next time. Thank you for listening to the Follow Forward podcast. This may have been my idea, but I worked with an awesome team to make it come to life. Thank you to Lucy for guest management, scheduling, and being a real gap filler. Jordan for taking over the guest management baton, as well as doing content production, scripting assistance, and editing of these podcasts. Alistair and my lovely wife, Christina, for technical production, and Taryn for taking behind-the-scenes content and crew support. Whether you're watching or listening, make sure to hit that subscribe button on whichever platform you are on, and share this episode with your friends so we can inspire even more people together. We release a new episode every Thursday, along with extra content to help you grow as a leader of people and a follower of Christ. Follow my Facebook page at Dr. Tim Tucker to access all the bonus content. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to send a DM or leave a comment letting us know what you enjoyed about the episode. God bless, and we'll see you next week.